The night was colder than usual in the alien city. Two small twins sat in the dark alley, their thin bodies shaking as the cold air cut through their skin like knives. Their eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, a sign of their alien blood, but that glow was weak, almost fading. People walked past without even looking at them, and if anyone did look, it was only with disgust. To the city they were nothing, abandoned children left to die. The twins pressed close to each other, trying to share the little warmth they had. Their clothes were torn, their small hands dirty, and their stomachs empty. The older twin, only, by minutes pulled the younger one close and whispered, "Don't cry, we must be strong." But her voice trembled, because she too was hungry. She too was afraid. Still, she smiled weakly to give her sister hope. A group of alien guards marched by, their boots striking the stone road. They saw the twins and sneered. "Useless," one muttered. "They should have been cleared away long ago." Another laughed. "Let them freeze, less work for us." The twins held their breath, praying not to be noticed further. The guards moved on, leaving the children shaking in fear. Hours passed, the night growing colder. The younger twin's lips turned blue, her eyes heavy. The older one shook her. "Stay awake, please stay with me." But she had no food, no blanket, no fire, only hope that someone, anyone, would care. At that moment, footsteps echoed in the alley, slow and steady. It was not the harsh rhythm of guards, nor the rushing steps of merchants. It was calm, heavy, but not cruel. A tall figure appeared, wrapped in a dark cloak, his face hidden under the hood. The twins looked up with fear and curiosity. The man stopped, his eyes adjusting to the shadows. What he saw made his chest tighten. Two children, fragile, close to death. He knelt slowly so as not to scare them. "Are you alone?" he asked softly, his voice warm. The older twin pulled her sister back and shook her head, too afraid to answer. The man sighed, his breath clouding in the cold. "You are freezing. You will not survive the night," he whispered, more to himself than to them. From the street, voices called, "Move on, stranger, don't waste your time with trash." The man looked up, seeing aliens watching him from a distance, their eyes filled with mockery. One of them spat. "They are abandoned for a reason. Leave them." The man ignored them, his gaze returning to the girls. He pulled a small piece of bread from his pack and broke it in half. He placed it gently before them. "Eat," he said. The younger twin reached out with shaking hands, her eyes wide with hunger. But the older one stopped her, her voice weak. We have nothing to give you back." The man smiled faintly. "I am not asking for anything." His kindness was strange, almost dangerous in this city where everyone thought only of themselves. The twins looked at him, unsure, but hunger was stronger than fear. Slowly they ate, tears rolling down their faces as the taste of bread filled their mouths. The man watched silently, his heart heavy. "How long have you been here?" he asked. The older twin whispered, Since they left us." Her voice cracked and she could say no more. The man's eyes hardened, though his face stayed calm. Abandoned children, left to die in a cold alley. He had seen cruelty before, but this was different. For a moment he felt a fire inside, the kind of fire that pushed men to do something impossible. Behind him the crowd muttered again, louder this time. "He is mad. A human helping alien trash? Better leave him or he'll share their fate." But the man did not move. He pulled off his cloak and wrapped it around the twins. The children gasped, their small hands clutching the warm fabric. The man stood again, his shadow tall against the alley wall. "If the world has abandoned you," he said firmly, "then I will not." The crowd fell silent for a moment, surprised at his words. Then one alien barked a laugh. "You'll regret this, human," but the man ignored them and bent down, lifting the younger twin into his arms. The older one looked at him with wide eyes. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice shaking. He looked back at her and said only one word. "Because someone should." With that, he offered his other hand to her, hesitant at first. The girl finally placed her small hand into his, and so together, they walked out of the alley. The night was still cold, the city still cruel, but now they were not alone. And for the first time, the twins felt a spark of hope. But in the shadows, unseen, a pair of glowing eyes followed them, watching, waiting, for their story was only beginning. The human walked through the dim streets with the younger twin in his arms, and the older girl holding tightly to his hand. Every step drew more attention, more whispers from the people around. "Look at him," a merchant muttered, "carrying street rats like they're treasures." Another hissed, "Humans are fools, always trying to play hero." But the man kept walking, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed ahead. The older twin looked up at him with wide eyes, unsure if this stranger was truly safe. Her sister's head rested weakly on his chest, and she whispered, She's not breathing well." The man stopped, his heart pounding. He touched the younger girl's forehead. It was ice cold. Panic struck him, not because he knew them well, but because no child should feel this close to death. He muttered, to himself, "I need help and I need it now." He turned into the market square where dozens of vendors called out their goods under dim lantern light, spices, fabrics, tools, everything except what he needed most. Care for dying children. He asked one vendor, "Is there a clinic nearby?" The alien vendor looked at him, then at the twins, and sneered. "Why waste medicine on those? They're already dead." The man's fists clenched, but he forced himself not to lash out. He moved from stall to stall, each time rejected, laughed at, or told to leave. The twins felt the anger in his chest, though he stayed calm for their sake. At last he found a rundown clinic at the far corner of the market. Its sign was cracked, its light flickering weakly. Inside, an old alien doctor sat behind a counter, half asleep. The man rushed in, placing the younger twin gently on the table. "Please," he said firmly. "She needs help now." The doctor squinted at him, then at the child, his lips curled in distaste. "These? You bring abandoned ones here?" The human nodded. "Yes, and you will help them?" The doctor shook his head slowly. "I treat those who can pay, and even then, I don't waste medicine on hopeless cases." The older twin clutched the man's sleeve, whispering, "Let's go, he won't help us." But the man didn't move. He pulled out a small pouch from his cloak and threw it on the counter. The sound of coins filled the silent room. "Take it," the man said, his voice sharp, "and treat her." The doctor's eyes widened. The pouch held more than enough. He hesitated. "This is more than her life is worth?" The man leaned closer, his eyes like steel. "Her life is worth everything to me." The doctor felt a chill in his bones, then nodded reluctantly. "Very well, I will try." The doctor placed strange glowing stones on the girl's chest and began his treatment. The stones pulsed with energy, sending warmth through her frail body. The older twin stood close, holding her sister's hand tightly, her small body shaking with fear. The human stood behind them, his fists clenched, watching every move. Minutes dragged like hours until finally the girl coughed weakly, her chest rising again with breath. The older twin gasped in relief, hugging her sister tightly, tears streaming down her face. "She's alive. She's alive," she whispered again and again. The man exhaled slowly, his shoulders easing for the first time that night. The doctor wiped his hands. "She will live for now, but both are weak, malnourished, close to breaking." He glanced at the human. "You saved them for tonight, but tomorrow, the city rulers will not like this." The man frowned. "Why?" The doctor leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Because the children were abandoned under the ruler's order. No one is allowed to claim them, no one is allowed to save them." The older twin's eyes widened, her small voice trembling. They will come for us?" The man placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then let them come," he said softly. But inside he knew the danger was real. When they left the clinic, the market was darker, emptier, but the whispers had grown louder. Did you hear? The human took the abandoned twins? Fool, he'll pay for it. He's cursed himself. The man ignored them, pulling the cloak tighter around the girls. As they walked through the narrow streets, the older twin finally spoke, her voice small but steady. Why? Why did you save us? Everyone else walked away. The man paused, his eyes softening. Because no child should be alone in the cold, he said. The girl stared at him for a long moment, then nodded, her tiny hand gripping his even tighter, but from the shadows, unseen eyes followed them. A cloaked figure leaned against the wall, watching the human carry the twins away. He whispered to himself, "So, someone has taken them. This will not be allowed." Then he disappeared into the night, moving to spread the news. The human reached an old, broken shelter at the edge of the city. It was not much, just a roof and walls, but it would keep the wind away. He set the younger girl down on a makeshift bed of cloth and covered her with his cloak. The older twin sat beside her, still holding her hand. The man leaned against the wall, tired, but his mind awake. Outside, faint footsteps echoed again and again, as if the city itself was waiting for him to make a mistake. And so the night grew long. A human, once a stranger, now sat with two children abandoned by the world. But he had made his choice, and that choice would soon change everything. The first light of morning touched the alien city. Shadows stretched across the narrow streets, and the market stalls began to open. The human man stepped out of the broken shelter, the two alien twins walking close beside him. The younger girl was still weak, her steps small, but her eyes were brighter than before. The older one held her hand tightly, determined not to let her fall. The market was alive with voices, the smell of strange foods and the glitter of goods from 100 worlds. But when the human entered with the twins, the noise fell to whispers. Merchants lowered their voices, customers stared, and the words spread like fire. That's him, the human who took the abandoned ones. He brought them back from Tethery. Fool, does he not know what happens to anyone who breaks the city's rules? The twins felt the stares burn against their skin. The older twin tried to stand tall, but fear trembled in her voice when she whispered, "They're watching us." The man gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Let them watch," he said firmly. But inside he could feel the weight of those eyes. Enemies did not always strike with weapons. Sometimes whispers killed faster. At one stall, he bought bread with the last of his coins. The vendor took his money with shaking hands, staring at the children with wide eyes. "Human," the vendor muttered under his breath. "You should leave this city before it's too late." The man frowned. "Why?" The vendor leaned closer, his voice low. "The rulers will not allow those two to live. They carry a bloodline that was meant to be erased." Before the man could ask more, the vendor quickly pulled away, looking afraid to say another word. The older twin overheard and froze, her eyes wide. "What does he mean?" she whispered, her lips trembling. The man crouched down to her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It means people fear what they don't understand," he said softly. "But you are not cursed. You are precious." She stared at him for a moment, then nodded, though the fear still lingered. The younger girl tugged at his sleeve and pointed. A cloaked figure stood at the edge of the market, half hidden in the crowd. The man noticed instantly, the same shadow from the night before. The figure was watching them closely, unmoving. When their eyes met, the figure slipped away, disappearing between stalls. The man's gut tightened. He knew danger was following them step by step. They walked deeper into the market. Children laughed as they played. Mothers bartered for food. But whenever the twins appeared, the laughter stopped. One alien woman pulled her child close, hissing, "Stay away from them." Another spat on the ground. They should have died in the cold where they belonged. The twins lowered their heads, tears forming in their eyes. But the man knelt and lifted their chins gently. "Look at me," he said firmly. "Your worth is not decided by them." His words were simple, but his voice was strong, and the girls clung to them like lifelines. Still, the whispers grew louder, spreading through the streets. Some said the human was cursed now. Others claimed he was planning to use the children for power. A few even murmured that the twins carried death in their blood. Every rumor twisted the truth. And with each passing hour, more eyes turned against them. By midday, the man found a small corner to rest, a fountain with clean water. The twins sat together, dipping their hands into the cool stream. For a moment, they laughed softly, their voices pure, like the childhood they had almost lost. The sound warmed the man's heart, but it also drew more stares. An old alien stopped nearby and shook his head. "You cannot change their fate, human," he said coldly. The man stood tall, his eyes steady. "Then I will make a new fate." The old alien scoffed and walked away, but his words hung heavy in the air. As the sun lowered, the market grew busier, the whispers louder. The man noticed figures moving. At the edges, too many to be simple buyers. He knew what this meant. The rulers were already sending eyes to watch him. The older twin tugged his hand. "Where will we go? Where is home?" The question struck him deeply because he had no answer. He had taken them, saved them, but he had no home to give, no safe place to hide. Yet he forced a smile. "Wherever we go together, that will be home." The girl blinked back tears and nodded, choosing to believe him. Just then, the younger twin stumbled, nearly falling. The man caught her quickly, but the movement drew attention. A group of guards entered the market square, their armor shining, their voices loud. The crowd fell silent, stepping back as the guards marched forward, their captain's eyes locked on the human and the twins. "There," he barked, "the man who broke the law by claiming what was abandoned." The market filled with tension, everyone watching. The twins clutched the man's cloak in fear. The captain raised his hand. "By order of the rulers, those children are to be taken." The man's heart pounded, his body tense. He had known this moment would come, but so soon. In front of everyone, he stepped in front of the twins, his voice steady. "No one takes them." The crowd gasped at his defiance. The guards stepped closer, their weapons ready. The whispers stopped now. Only silence, heavy and sharp. The shadowy figure from earlier appeared again, hidden behind the crowd, watching with keen eyes. The human man felt the weight of choice pressing on him once again, and this time, his choice could mean life or death. The market square froze as the guards surrounded the human, and the twins, the captain's voice echoed, sharp and merciless. "Step aside, human. These children belong to the rulers. You have broken the law by taking what was abandoned." The crowd whispered again, fear mixing with curiosity. Some muttered, "He's doomed." Others leaned forward, waiting to see if the human would bow like everyone else. The man stood tall, his cloak wrapped tightly around the trembling twins. His voice was calm but firm. "They are not objects to be claimed. They are children." The captain's face twisted with anger, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. "You dare question the rulers?" he hissed. The man's heart beat fast, but his eyes didn't waver. "I dare protect them." He said. The twins clung to his legs, their small bodies shaking. The older one whispered, "Please, don't fight them, they will kill you." But the man only placed a hand on her head, steady and gentle. "Don't be afraid." The guards moved closer, their boots striking the stone ground in rhythm. One guard grabbed the older twin by the arm, yanking her away. The girl cried out, but before she could be dragged further, the human moved. With speed that surprised the crowd, he struck the guard's wrist, forcing him to release her. The girl stumbled back into his arms. The market gasped, shocked that a human dared raise his hand against the city's enforcers. The captain snarled, "Enough! Arrest him!" But before the guards could strike, a voice rang out from the back of the crowd. "Wait," it said, cold and sharp. The shadowy figure stepped forward, cloak sliding back just enough to reveal his face. He was not a guard, nor a merchant, but something else. His presence made the crowd shrink away. "The rulers will want him alive," the figure said, his eyes fixed on the human. "Bring him to them, with the children." The man understood then. He was not just saving 2 children. He was standing against the entire rule of the city. The price of kindness was already falling heavy on him. He tightened his grip on the twins, whispering, "Stay close to me, no matter what happens." The guards lunged forward, but the man didn't fight with rage. He fought with purpose. He blocked one strike, shoved another guard aside, always moving to keep the children behind him. The crowd scattered, shouting, some cheering quietly under their breath. For in that moment the human showed something no alien had dared. Defiance, but even courage has limits. The guards outnumbered him, and the figure in the cloak was watching, waiting. The younger twin cried as a guard's blade slashed the air close to her. The man blocked with his arm, pain searing through him. But he didn't let go. He shouted at the crowd, "Will none of you help? These are children." Silence answered him. The aliens looked away, afraid of punishment, unwilling to risk themselves. And the human realized the bitter truth. In this city, kindness was punished, never rewarded. Still, he would not yield. Using his strength and determination, he forced the guards back just long enough to scoop the twins into his arms. He dashed toward a narrow alley, moving fast. The twins pressed against his chest. Shouts rose behind him, guards chasing, the cloaked figure following silently. The market dissolved into chaos. But all the man could hear was the pounding of his heart and the frightened breaths of the girls. The alley was dark, twisting, filled with broken crates and piles of waste. The man stumbled but kept running, whispering, "Hold on, just hold on." Behind him the clatter of armor grew louder, closer. The twins buried their faces against him, trying to shut out the sound of pursuit. He ducked into a side passage and pressed his back to the wall. His breathing was rough, his arm bleeding from the earlier strike. The older twin looked up at him, eyes wide with fear. "Why do you keep fighting for us? You don't even know us." The man's voice was low but steady. "I don't need to know you to see that your lives matter." Tears filled her eyes, her small hands clutching his shirt. "No one has ever said that to us," she whispered. The man smiled faintly, even in the darkness. "Then remember it because it's true." The footsteps drew nearer, echoing through the narrow walls. The man knew he couldn't run forever. The guards would find them, and when they did, he would have to make a stand. He looked at the twins, fragile yet clinging to him with everything they had, and he made a silent vow. If he had to pay with his life, then so be it. The price of kindness was heavy, but he would bear it. Suddenly, the cloaked figure's voice rang out, close now. "You cannot hide, human. The rulers will take what is theirs. Hand over the children, and perhaps they will let you live." The man pressed the twins closer, his eyes burning with resolve. "They are not yours to take," he called back. The figure chuckled darkly. "Then you have chosen death." The key sound of blades being drawn filled the air. The twins clutched him tighter, their small voices trembling. "Don't leave us." The man's voice was calm, steady like stone. "Never." The alley filled with the shadows of the approaching guards. The fight was not over. It was only beginning. The alley was narrow and dark, lit only by the faint glow of broken street lamps. The human pressed his back to the wall, his arms wrapped tightly around the twins. From both ends of the alley, the sound of heavy boots echoed closer and closer. The guards were trapping him like prey. The cloaked figure's voice carried through the night, cold and sharp. "You cannot run forever. Hand them over." The twins trembled against his chest, their small hands gripping his cloak. The older whispered, "Please, don't let them take us." The man lowered his head to her ear and whispered back, "I won't." His voice was steady, even though inside his heart pounded like thunder. When the guards rushed in, the man moved fast. He ducked into a side passage so narrow only one person could pass at a time. The guards cursed, shoving each other to squeeze through. The human ran, his breath harsh, his boots striking the wet stone. The twins clung to him, their frightened breaths hot against his chest. The passage twisted like a maze, every turn taking them deeper underground. At last they burst into an old service tunnel long abandoned. Pipes ran along the walls, dripping water into dark puddles. The air smelled of rust and rot, but it was better than the swords behind them. The man set the children down for a moment. "Stay close. Don't fall behind," he whispered. The older twin nodded quickly, helping her sister stand. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, small points of light guiding him through the shadows. Behind them, the sound of boots returned, closer than before. The guards' torches flickered down the tunnels, chasing them like hungry eyes. The man urged the girls forward. Go, go! They ran as fast as their small legs could carry them, stumbling over broken stones. The younger twin tripped, falling hard. The man scooped her up again without slowing. The guards shouted, There! Don't let them escape. From the darkness ahead, a new sound rose. Low growls, sharp claws scraping stone. The man slowed, his eyes narrowing. Shadows shifted, and from the corners, creatures crawled out, feral beasts that lived in the tunnels. They were thin but fast, their glowing eyes locking onto the twins. The older girl gasped, clutching her sister. They're going to eat us. The man pulled a broken pipe from the ground, gripping it like a weapon. Stay behind me, he ordered. The first beast lunged, its teeth flashing. The man swung the pipe with all his strength, striking it across the jaw. The creature screeched, stumbling back. Another came from the side, claws raking his arm. Pain shot through him, but he didn't falter. He kicked it away and raised the pipe again. Behind him, the twins cried out, their voices shaking the tunnel walls. And then, something strange happened. The younger twin's eyes glowed brighter, almost blinding in the dark. A wave of light burst from her small body, pushing the creatures back. The beasts hissed, retreating into the shadows as if terrified of her power. The man stared, shocked, but there was no time to ask. He grabbed both girls and ran deeper into the tunnel. The guards finally reached the beasts and chaos exploded behind them. The creatures attacked the armored soldiers, tearing into them with savage hunger. Screams filled the tunnels, metal clashing against claws. The cloaked figure stood back, watching silently, his eyes fixed not on the beast but on the fleeing human and the glowing children. So, they carry the gift, he whispered. No wonder the rulers wanted them dead. The man kept running until the tunnel opened into an old, forgotten chamber. Broken machines lined the walls, and faint moonlight slipped through cracks in the ceiling. The children collapsed against him, gasping for air. The older one looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. What was that light? What happened to her? The man shook his head. I don't know, but it saved us. The younger twin leaned weakly against his chest, whispering, I was scared. And then it just happened. The man wrapped his arms around them both, his voice gentle. Whatever it is, it's part of you. Don't be afraid of it. He looked up at the cracked ceiling, moonlight shining on his bruised face. They were safe for now, but the city would not stop hunting them, not after what had happened. From outside the chamber, faint voices echoed. Guards, calling, still searching. The man stood, his legs aching, his arm bleeding, but his will unbroken. He lifted the twins again and whispered, We can't stay here. We move at dawn. The older twin frowned, her small voice trembling. But, where will we go? The man looked at her, his eyes steady. Far from here. Somewhere they can never touch you. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Her sister reached up with a weak hand and touched his face. Don't leave us. She whispered, half asleep. The man's voice was firm, strong like a vow. Never. The night grew colder, the chamber silent except for the distant screams of guards fighting beasts. The man held the twins close, guarding their fragile sleep. He knew the escape had only begun, and he knew one truth with painful clarity. The rulers would never forgive what he had done. The price of kindness had turned into war, and he was ready to pay it. The first rays of dawn slipped through the cracks in the chamber ceiling. Dust floated in the air, glowing like tiny stars. The man sat against the wall, holding the twins close as they slept. His arm ached from wounds. His clothes were torn, but he stayed awake. Every sound from the tunnels made him tense, afraid the guards would return. The younger twin stirred first, her small hand clutching his shirt. Her eyes opened slowly, the faint glow in them still shimmering. From the night before, she whispered, You didn't leave. The man smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. I told you, I will never leave. The older twin woke soon after, her eyes sharper, always watching him carefully. She sat up, still holding her sister's hand. "Why do you care so much?" she asked softly. "No one ever cared before. They said we were cursed, dangerous." The man looked at her with steady eyes. "You are not cursed. You are children who were wronged, that is all." Her lip trembled as if she wanted to believe him but had been told lies for too long. For a while they sat in silence, sharing the bread he had saved from the market. It was hard and stale, but to the twins, it tasted like a feast. They smiled for the first time in days, crumbs on their lips. The man felt warmth in his chest, a feeling he had almost forgotten. Hope. When they finished, the older twin asked the question that had been burning inside her. "Who are you? Why did you come here?" The man looked down at his rough hands, thinking, "I am just a traveler," he said finally. "I have no family, no home, only the road ahead." The younger twin leaned against him, whispering, "Then, maybe we can be your family." The words struck him like lightning. For years he had walked alone, never belonging, never staying. But now, two fragile voices offered him something more powerful than any gold or treasure. He placed a hand on each of their heads. "Yes," he said softly, "we are family now." The twins smiled, small but bright. The older one nodded firmly. "Then you are our father." He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "I may not be much of a father." But the younger twin hugged him tightly. "You are now." The moment was warm, but it did not erase the danger. The man knew the cloaked figure had seen the girl's strange power. The rulers would come harder now, not just to erase them, but to capture what they feared. He could not protect them forever by running. He needed to understand who they really were. That evening, as they rested again, he asked gently, "Why do the rulers want you gone? Do you know?" The older twin hesitated, her eyes filling with fear. "They said, we are the last," she whispered, "the last of our bloodline. Our parents. They were nobles once, but they were killed. We were hidden away, but then abandoned to die so no one would remember us." The man felt his chest tighten. These were not just poor children. They were survivors of a fallen house. The rulers feared their bloodline, feared what it carried, and now he understood. The younger girl's power, the burst of light in the tunnels. It was part of that legacy. He reached out and took their hands, his voice steady. "Then you are not just children abandoned in the cold. You are daughters of something greater. But to me, you are simply mine now." The older twin's eyes filled with tears she had held back for so long. No words, only a trembling nod as she leaned against him. The younger twin whispered, "Father, I don't want to be afraid anymore." The man hugged her tightly. "You won't be. Not while I breathe." That night, the bond between them grew stronger. No longer strangers, no longer a rescuer and the rescued. They were becoming a family. One forged not by blood, but by choice, by courage, by kindness. But outside the chamber, danger moved again. The cloaked figure stood in the shadows, watching through the cracks. He whispered to himself, "So it is true. The children live, and the power flows in their veins." His eyes glinted with cold hunger. "The rulers will pay me well when I deliver them." The man sensed something, a chill crawling up his spine. He placed the twins closer to him, his hand gripping the broken pipe he still carried. The girls looked up at him, trusting, their fear fading in his presence. He whispered to them, "Sleep. Tomorrow, we will find a place far better than this." But deep inside, he knew tomorrow would bring more battles, more choices, more pain. Still, as he looked down at the two fragile lives in his arms, he knew he had already made his decision. They were his now, and he would fight the whole galaxy if he had to, because family was worth the price. The night was silent, too silent. The man felt it in his bones. The city was waiting. He sat in the ruined chamber, the twins asleep at his side. Their small hands held onto his cloak as if letting go meant the world would swallow them. His eyes stayed on the cracks in the wall where faint moonlight poured in. He knew the rulers would not wait much longer. Before dawn, the ground trembled with heavy steps. From the tunnel entrance came the sound of armor, the clatter of weapons. The guards had returned, and this time, there were many. Torches lit the tunnels, shadows of soldiers stretching long and sharp. And at the front walked the cloaked figure, his smile cold. "Your kindness ends tonight, human," he said, his voice echoing through the stone. The man stood slowly, lifting the pipe he had carried since the tunnels. Behind him the twins stirred awake, their frightened eyes glowing in the dim light. He whispered, "Stay behind me, no matter what." The older twin shook her head, tears glistening. "They will kill you." The man glanced at her and smiled faintly. "Then I'll make sure they never touch you first." The cloaked figure raised a hand, and the guards spread. Out surrounding the chamber, the crowd of soldiers sneered, blades flashing. The man took a deep breath, his body tense but his heart calm. He was only one, but he was enough because he was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for family. The first guard rushed in, blade raised high. The man swung his pipe with raw strength, knocking the weapon aside and striking the guard down. Another came from behind, but the man twisted, blocking with his arm and striking back. Pain ripped through his wounds, but he didn't stop. Every blow he struck was fueled by the promise he had made, never to leave them. The twins cried out as more guards pressed forward. The older one clutched her sister tightly, whispering, "Please, please don't let him fall." The younger twin's eyes began to glow again, brighter than before. The cloaked figure noticed, his grin widening. "Yes, show it, child. Show the power they fear." Suddenly, the chamber filled with a burst of light. The younger twin screamed, not in pain, but in release. The light exploded outward, pushing the guards back like a wave. They stumbled, blinded, their armor rattling. Against the walls, the man shielded his eyes but felt warmth instead of fear. When the light faded, the guards hesitated, staring in awe at the small, glowing girl. The cloaked figure's smile turned sharp. "So it's true. The gift lives in her blood." He raised his hand, signaling the guards to press forward again. But the human stepped in front of the twins, his body battered but unyielding. "You will not touch them," he growled. The fight turned brutal, blades clashing against steel pipe. The man moved with fury, striking, blocking, never letting them near the girls. He was bleeding, his strength fading, but still he fought. The older twin cried, "Father, stop! You'll die!" He turned his head for just a moment, his eyes soft. "Then I'll die protecting you." And then something unexpected happened. The older twin stepped forward, her small body trembling but her voice clear. "No," she whispered. "Not alone." Her eyes began to glow too, faint but steady. Together the sisters held hands, their combined light filling the chamber with a brilliant shield. The guards struck against it, but their blades shattered, their bodies thrown back. The man staggered, stunned, as the girls stood like beacons, power flowing not from anger but from love. The cloaked figure stepped back, his smile fading. This was not supposed to happen," he hissed. He turned and fled into the tunnels, his plan broken. The guards, terrified, scattered like shadows before the dawn. The chamber fell silent, only the sound of the children's breath and the man's heartbeat filling the air. The light faded slowly and the twins collapsed into his arms, exhausted. The man held them close, whispering, "You saved me. You saved us all." The older one lifted her head weakly. "No, you saved us first." The younger twin smiled faintly, her small hand pressing to his chest. "Family." The word was soft, but it echoed louder than any shout. When the sun finally rose over the city, the man carried the twins out of the tunnels. The streets that once spat at them now stared in silence. Whispers rose again, but they were different this time. Those children live. They have power, and the humans stood against the rulers. The man ignored them all, his eyes fixed forward. The city was still dangerous, the rulers still powerful. But none of that mattered. He had made his choice. They were his family now, and nothing could take that away. At the city's edge, the man looked back one last time. The towers stood high, but their shadow no longer frightened him. He turned and walked toward the horizon, the twins safe in his arms. The path ahead was uncertain, full of danger and struggle. But they would walk it together, and so in a world that had abandoned them, a human's kindness created something stronger than fear. Not just survival, but family. And from that bond, a new story had begun.